Halloween?
Sequels, as we all know, can be kinda rough. They're a hit or miss. I think this one has a great plot to it. The Invisible Man Returns from 1940 was directed by Joe May. Credits let us know that this is a follow-up to the 33 movie. Love the intro to this one. It just hits you right off the bat with the music, and the title screen is killer too. We fade in a few servants who work for the Radcliffe Mansion. They are discussing if the head of the house is a murderer or not. Apparently, there's a rumor going around that he killed his own brother and he's been incarcerated for it. They are split 50-50 on if he did it or not. Off topic, I couldn't find the name of any of these actors right here, but they kind of look familiar, so if anyone knows the names, please leave them in the comments. In the other room upstairs, we have Helen Mason, played by Nan Gray, who is also in Dracula's Daughter. Okay, I know. Go ahead and say it. We're gonna get to that series. Oh, and this fella, who I think you should remember from The Ghost of Frankenstein.
Delighted to see you, Eric. How are you?
Cedric Hardwicke as Richard Cobb. Also walks in as Dr. Griffin, played by John Sutton. That name sounds kind of familiar. So Cobb is a pretty important guy downtown, and he's pretty well respected amongst the townspeople. And Frank and Helen want him to kind of help clear Jeffrey's name. That's the owner of the mansion, who Helen is actually in love with, and Frank is really good friends with. Cobb is hesitant to call. I wonder why. But he makes a call downtown and, well...
Oh, I see. Thank you. It's no use.
He's unable to do anything. So, Dr. Griffin goes down to see Jeffrey. And we don't see them meet, but judging by his last name, I think you can figure out what's going to happen here.
He's gone!
Jeffrey is gone, and now Scotland Yard sends their Inspector Sampson, played by Cecil Kellaway, to investigate. You guys remember him too from The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
They listen to you this time, my boy. Get them on the phone.
And The Mummy's Hand.
Oh, but we're both from Brooklyn. Why, we're practically brothers.
Once Cobb hears Jeffrey is on the run, he goes to see Dr. Griffin. He knows Dr. Griffin knows exactly how he escaped. And he knows where Helen is too, because now she is missing. But Griffin doesn't want to tell him shit. The good doctor gets 2 visitors that day because Sampson shows up to question him too. He's done all his homework and he knows that Jack Griffin was his brother, and he was the first guy to experiment the invisibility drug. So he's pretty sure he knows how his friend escaped. Helen is shacked up out in the woods in Griffin's personal cabin, and look who comes wandering in. I'm not going to say who plays the Invisible Man yet because I'm going to wait till the end for that one this time. I had no idea who the actor was, so I'm not going to ruin that just yet. If you know, shh, don't tell anyone yet. The groundskeeper is named Ben, and he's played by Forrester Harvey, and his dog is not happy. Jeff just needs to relax until Frank has the antidote. He's trying to get uninvisible. Frank has been pretty hard at work trying to get the antidote for his friend. The effects here are pretty cool. A little cheesy, but they look alright. Gonna guess by his face, though, this test didn't go so well. These effects look great too, though. You can kind of see the bandages in the back of his head through the eye holes. That's a nice touch. Ben, being the nice host that he is, drops off tea for everyone, and this sets Jeffrey off a little bit.
What do you want?
I was wondering whether a bite to eat wouldn't be welcome, sir.
This might be the chemical they mentioned from the first movie kind of messing with his brain, driving him nutty. The police show up and it's time for Jeffrey to bail. He tells Helen that he'll see her later, and he's going to go see Frank. Funny thing about this movie is you can see the actor's outline in this one a lot more than the first one.
Hello, Radcliffe Accident Home. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Champion was removed to the county hospital this morning.
I must have been mistaken.
Jeffrey visits Frank, and Frank is still hard at work trying to figure out how to turn him back. During their meeting, Frank gets a visit from the mine superintendent named Willie Spears, played by Alan Napper. Yep, that's the high priest from the Mole People.
You are not of us. There is heaven, and only the gods live there.
Spears kind of spills the beans to Frank that now that Jeffrey is gone, Cobb is going to take over the whole mining operation, and Spears is going to help run it. Yeah, I forgot to mention that part. Jeffrey is actually a big wig with this whole mining thing. Cobb works for him, he's jealous, and it kind of seems like we're getting to the point that Cobb had Jeffrey set up. So not only does he want his company, but he wants his girl now too. So Jeffrey decides to fuck with this guy on his way back home.
I had but one glass of whiskey. Only one? Well, two.
Cobb is already on edge because he hasn't heard from Spears in a little while. But that doesn't stop him from once again trying to get with Helen. Luckily, Jeff shows up just in time to cockblock.
I'll start from the beginning if you don't mind, Helen.
Jeffrey!
Yes, Richard, I've come for a little chat.
Once Jeffrey tells Richard that he pretty much knows that he set him up to kill his brother, Cobb flips out and tries to flee but bumps into Samson. What timing. And watch this.
In fact, I'm sure you'd better stay.
That's pretty cool. I like that effect right there. Gotta love the smoke gun ideas, too. Jeffrey nabs one of the gassers, I guess that's what you would call him, and takes his gear and grabs Helen and gets out of there. Man, these invisible men are pretty crafty. Frank now has had it. Ugh, the poor guy's been working days and days on this to try to get Jeffrey back to normal. He's pretty exhausted too. Once the action dies down, Helen, Frank, and Jeffrey have a celebratory dinner. For what, you ask? Because no one has caught him yet. And this scene is what I think most people would envision as the Invisible Man. The attitude, the way he talks, his body language. This to me is what I've always thought of when I thought of the Invisible Man.
I am free. I've never been more free in my life. You know, being invisible has distinct advantages. It gives one a sense of power that's exciting.
This conversation is also showing that Jeffrey is starting to descend into madness hardcore. Frank drugs Jeffrey before he could do something totally wicked. Jeffrey is able to escape from Frank and heads to square things up with Cobb. Holding him at gunpoint, he brings him back to Spears' place. Spears is going to rat out Cobb, but, Cobb takes him out instead.
I saw Cobb do it. Hit Sir Michael over the head with a wrench and shove him down the shaft. He promised me money and a good position if I kept my mouth shut.
Cobb makes a mad dash, and Jeffrey and him duke it out with everyone watching. Samson gets a shot off and hits Jeffrey, but it's too late for Cobb. Before Cobb dies, he confesses to killing Jeffrey's brother.
I killed Michael.
And that's that. This scarecrow scene, by the way, I think is the best one in the movie.
You don't mind, do you?
Jeffrey stumbles back to Frank's. He's lost a buttload of blood from that bullet shot from Samson. Oh yeah. And now he's an innocent man, by the way. Everybody wants to help him.
So Jeffrey has to have a blood transfusion to save his life. Who'll volunteer?
After a couple of blood transfusions, Frank realizes that Jeffrey has some internal bleeding, so he has to operate on him. Before he can do that, though, all the blood transfusions kind of swapped out his blood, so now the invisibility is wearing off. Oh yeah, and here it is. Our Invisible Man, now visible, is played by Vincent Price, which totally blew my mind the first time I saw this because I didn't look this movie up at all, and then as he started to fade in, I was like, holy shit, I know that guy. So that was a pretty wonderful surprise to me.
The new blood itself was
is the antidote.
The end. So did he not need that internal operation? So this one, in my opinion, it kind of lacks what the first one had with the terror aspect. There's not a whole lot of it. This one is more of like a spy kind of murder mystery, more or less. You know, the Invisible Man just wants to clear his name. He does dive into madness for a little bit there, but then he cleans himself up pretty quick. The comedy is also a little bit more in this one than the first one, but it's still a little light. Helen, yeah. She has no emotion or depth to her character, and she always has the same facial expression, so she was kind of boring. Hardwick is really good as the bad guy, I like him. He's very convincing as the, yeah, I don't really care about this guy, so I'm going to screw him over to get what I want. And the reveal of Vincent Price, well, that just, whoo, man, that blew my mind, and that was really cool. I liked that. The aspect that I find interesting with this one, too, is the brother of the main character in the first one is the main character, but he's not the focus of the movie. He's almost like the semi-savior trying to help out the main character. Did I like this one? And do I recommend it? Yeah, it's not too bad. Next up is The Invisible Woman.